Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, viewers from across America and around the world. I'm Zen Garcia, your host. This is fallenangels.tv, and it's a Wednesday evening broadcast. I appreciate everybody joining us. We've got a pretty interesting show lined up for you this evening. We're going to be speaking about the fall of humanity and the loss of our immortality, the loss of our first estate, the loss of our light vestures, and how it is that we ended up being incarnated into the flesh, finding ourselves in a fallen form, in a fallen world where we're surrounded by devils and demons, and we're being taught through the full spectrum of good and evil, through the duality, the dual nature of this binary world, where we're learning through spirit and matter, the things of the kingdom. And so I'm going to expound upon these things and explicate them in such a way that hopefully this whole scenario will be elucidated in your mind and you will understand how it is that we got to be here and why it's important to recall all of this information for yourself so that you can put it together and bring yourself to remembrance, because the fall of humanity, the war in heaven, is a scenario that affected each one of us in a situation that's the original sin, is going back to the war in heaven and the rebellion of the angels against the Most High and the Morning Star administration. And that's what led to the division of light and darkness, and also the imperishable realms from what is the visible realms. And we know that when Lucifer and his angels, which when he was cast out, he took the name of Satanaz or Satan El, which just means the adversary of the Most High and of all that is good. And he and his seraphim angels, which were the dragon, reptilian-looking angels, they rebelled with him. And when they were cast out of the heavens on the second day, they began to rule over what was the visible universe, the visible realms. And the Lord had purpose for all this. The Father and the Son, the King, they had purpose for all of this unfolding in the way that it did, because we would have part to play within all this as well. Just to let everybody know, I am busy working on my next book, Pre-Existence in the Prior Times, and my hope is to have it published by the spring. Whether it gets picked up by Tate or not for certain. I will give them opportunity, of course, to represent the work, and if it is done in that way, then it will take another year for them to go through their whole production process. But the Lord willing, it will be available to you very soon, because I know a lot of you are very interested in these topics, and there's not much that has been written, especially not in the way that I'm going to present it to you, on the full summation of Scripture and all the different texts out there which prove and verify this information, and pre-existence and predestination. I'll be covering those in their fullness, as well as election, our first world age, the prior times, before, what happened from the rebellion to the time of the creation of Adam and Eve, the beginning of the second world age, and so I will bring this all to light. One other thing, I'm also in presenting forth the information tonight and talking about the fall of humanity. I'm going to reflect upon the whole, Cain being a hybrid child of Lucifer and Satan, the fallen archon. Because I know that this is, for those of you that have studied my work, that have been, followers of this program for a number of years, that this is basics, and this is something that you've heard many times, me explain many times, but we have so many new listeners now, and this is, for some reason, everybody gets stuck and hung up on the whole Genesis 4:1, chapter 4:1, and that saying that Adam was the father of Cain. So I'm going to touch upon that, not in great detail, but I am going to revisit that question again. But anyways, let's go ahead and go into the text. The first thing that I would like to read from is a book called the Kitab al-Majali. And this is something that not a lot of people know about, have not read, but it's a book that was published and put forth by Clement, one of the original church fathers. And it's also called the Book of Rolls. And I'm not going to read the entirety of the text, but I'm going to pinpoint one specific passage which talks about the fall of humanity. And it's interesting the way that this text presents it, because it will confirm, again, that when we were created in our original bright-natured form, in our original light-vestured, immortal selves, that this took place above the earth, and Adam was then took into paradise. That the fallen angels were witness to the creation of Adam and also to his being crowned king of paradise, which is found and located at the third heaven. When Adam was given such glory and placed into the garden of paradise and put into such beautiful rest, Lucifer and his fallen angels, they became quite jealous. And he then was determined to exact revenge against Yahushua, the Word, for his banishment from the heavens on the second day. He decided that he would relegate himself to the temptation, seduction, and deception of the Lord's highest creatures and cause them to fall. He did this so that they would then incarnate into his world and to the visible realms where he was the ruler, and he was given authority for a short time, only for a short time, 7,000 years. So, if you would like to look up the name of this text, I will spell it at the end of this particular commentary. But it says this: while Adam was listening to the speech of his Lord to him, and standing upon the place of Golgotha, all the creatures being gathered together that they might hear the conversations of God with him, lo, a cloud of light carried him and went with him to paradise. And the choirs of angels sang before him, the cherubim among them blessing, and the seraphim crying, Holy, until Adam came into paradise. He entered it at the third hour on Friday, and the Lord, to him be praised, gave him the commandment and warned him against disobedience to it. And then the Lord, to him be praised, threw upon Adam a form of sleep, and he slept a sweet sleep in paradise. And God took a rib from his left side, and from it he created Eve. When he awoke and saw Eve, he rejoiced over her and lived with her, and she was in the pleasant garden of paradise. God clothed them with glory and splendor. They outvied one another in glory with which they were clothed, and the Lord crowned them for marriage. The angels congratulated them, and there was joy, such as never has been the like, and never will be, till the day in which the people at the right hand shall hear the glorious voice from the Lord. Adam and Eve remained in paradise for 3 hours. I'm going to skip just a little bit forward and get to the fall and to the deception. Then God planted the tree of life in the middle of paradise, and it was the form of the cross which was stretched upon it. And it was the tree of life and salvation. Satan remained in his envy to Adam and Eve for the favor which the Lord showed them, and he contrived to enter into the serpent, which was the most beautiful of the animals, and its nature was above the nature of the camel. He carried it till he went with it in the air to the lower parts of paradise. The reason for Iblis, that's the Muslim name of Satan, Iblis, I-B-L-I-S. The cursed hiding himself in the serpent was his ugliness. For when he was deprived of his honor, he got into the acme of ugliness, till none of the creatures could have borne the sight of him uncovered. And if Eve had seen him unveiled in the serpent when she spoke to him, she would have run away from him, and neither cunning nor deceit would have availed him with her. But he contrived to hide himself in the serpent, the cunning creature, to teach the birds with round tongues the speech of men in Greek and such like. Skipping just a little bit more. I'm only going to read a couple more paragraphs, and then we'll decipher this particular passage. But the cursed devil, when he entered the serpent, came towards Eve when she was alone in paradise, away from Adam, and called her by her name. She turned to him and looked at her likeness behind the veil, and he talked to her and she talked to him. He led her astray by his speech, for woman's nature is weak, and she trusts in every word. And he lectured her about the forbidden tree in obedience to her desire, and described to her the goodness of its taste, and that when she should eat of it, she should become a god. And she longed for what the cursed one made her long for, and she would not hear from the Lord. May his name be sanctified. What he had commanded Adam about the tree. She hastened eagerly towards it, and seized some of its fruit in her mouth. Then she called Adam, and he hastened to her. She gave him of the fruit, telling him that if he ate of it, he would become a god. He listened to her advice, because he should become a god, as she said. And when he and she ate of the fruit, they were bereft of their glory, and their splendor was taken from them, and they were stripped of the light which they had been clothed. When they looked at themselves, they were naked of the grace which they had worn, and their shame was manifest to them. They made to themselves aprons of fig leaves and covered themselves therewith, and they were in great sadness for 3 hours. They did not manage to continue in the grace and the power with which the Lord had endued them before their rebellion, till it was taken from them, and they were made to slip and fall down. At the time of the sunset of that day, they received the sentence of God in punishment. After the clothing of fig leaves, they put on clothing of skins, and that is the skin of which our bodies are made, being of the family of man, and it is a clothing of pain. All right, we'll stop here. The name of this book is Kitab al-Magali. Kitab just means book. So it's spelled Kitab space AL-MAGALL. If you'd like to look this book up yourself, I would definitely recommend that you read it in its entirety, because it will bring to light that, yes, Adam was created in the sight of the fallen angels, as it also says in the Nag Hammadi and the Gnostic texts, that a reflection of him shone down upon the waters of the earth, and that he was taken into paradise, which was a protective garden where the Father had clothed him in immortality. And Satan had to enter into the form of the serpent and fly up to paradise in order to trick and seduce him and Eve. Now, one thing that I would like to also clarify as far as the fall and the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because many people misquote me on what they think they understand me as saying. As I explain in my books, Lucifer, Father of Cain, and Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here, the original fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that this fruit, when they ate of it, their eyes were open as if they were gods. And it caused them to lose their immortality, to lose their light vestures. It caused them to fall from their angelic being. This is the loss of their first estate. Now, people teach that I teach that this fruit was actually Eve being seduced by Lucifer and being impregnated to then birth the child Cain. But that's not what I teach. That is something that happens on the 8th day after they have their bodies transformed in the flesh. When they ate of the original tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is in paradise, this caused them to lose their immortality. This caused them to fall into flesh form. This is what the Lord is speaking about in Genesis chapter 3 when he prophesies to them that they are now going to enter into flesh, and that Eve will, yes, she will then, after entering into flesh, give birth to children. And Adam would have to work the soil, and also saying to the serpent that there would be war and enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And the seed of the serpent would be Cain. After Eve is transformed into the flesh on the 8th day and placed upon the wilderness of the earth, she was raped by the archons, as described by the Nag Hammadi codices. And this rape is what impregnated her with Cain. So I have to clarify that, because the original fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, did not cause Eve to be impregnated with Cain. That occurred after the transformation into flesh, which occurs on the 8th day. All right. Now, here we're going to touch upon, let me check the chat room. Welcome, Jess. Hello, son. My son's in the chat room. It's always good to have you join us for the show. I'm going to explain now the birth of Cain and the hybrid line and the enmity between the seed lines, in order so that, because I know this is, basics for a lot of you that have been studying the work, that have been following my shows for years, but these are really advanced concepts for the new listeners and for those that are not familiar with this particular discernment. And so I'm going to shed a little bit more light to it. And I'm actually going to read from a conversation that took place between me and 3 of my listeners on my YouTube channel. And for those that don't know what my YouTube channel is, my YouTube name is Endeavor Freedom, ENDEAVOR FREEDOM. And there's many of my movies and videos and all that has been available for years also on YouTube. The videos that I've done with Dr. Joy explaining the garden parable, explaining as in the days of Noah, explaining the Cain issue, they are all found there. If you would like to actually read the information that I'm about to read, This is all commentary that occurs on the third part of the three creations of Adam and the three world ages, which is a series that I published on YouTube, and it's a show that I did here a long, long time ago. All right, the conversation begins with this. Then, apparently renowned Hebrew scholar and author Michael Heiser disagrees with the serpent seed line view based on his opinion of how the original Hebrew of Genesis 4:1 is to be parsed. Have you heard his argument? I'm not sure what to believe. I simply want to believe whatever is the truth, but the truth appears to be extremely hard to pin down regarding this issue. Next person says, I'm confused too, Zen's belief in that regards too, then, because he is the one who is for the serpent seed line. He teaches that Satan, and of course they misquote me here, he teaches that Satan impregnated Eve and she had Cain by Satan. This isn't what happened in the original fall, as I just explained, but I don't think that this is true, because if you use the KJV Bible, it clearly says that she lay with Adam and he had Abel. Then a few lines later, she again knew Adam and thanks God for a second son, Cain. Only those reworded Bibles, which is every retranslated Bible, does not have that in there clearly. And I get this so many times, at least once a week, that somebody asks me about this. And so that's why I decided to cover it in this show. Third person says this. I agree. The KJV clearly states that Adam knew Eve, she bore Cain, and Adam said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. Maybe the devil's line is the shaggy cave ones. Okay, so this is what I said. So explain this then. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil, the harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of the world. This is what Christ said to us in Matthew chapter 13. So I said this, do you believe Christ? And what does he say? He answered and said to them, and basically what I just read to you about Matthew chapter 13, the wheat and the tares. I continue on saying, I'm not asking anybody to believe me on Cain or the serpent seed. My fourth book is 324 pages of information which verifies this premise. It has all been laid out for people to study and research for themselves. This is a touchy and difficult subject for people, and it's one that they will have to spend a lot of time and effort in clarifying for themselves. If they are not willing to do the work, it's all on them. I sounded the warning. I've blown the trumpet. The rest is on you. Continuing, commentary from one of the readers, he says, does it take 324 pages to substantiate your claim? I'm not saying your views are heretical, but we're simply asking for clarification on a few verses that appear to directly contradict your entire thesis. Can you provide clarification on these verses? Genesis 4:1. The passage you cited definitely alludes to the devil having seed or a mutated genetic line that has been growing alongside Yahweh's creation, but it doesn't prove unequivocal proof of that seed line starting with Cain, which I thought was a really good question. And so here's the rest of the commentary that I put out. I said this. Yes, it does take 320. Oh, wait a second. Let me make sure I got the right beginning. Okay, yes. Okay. Just wanted to present it to you in the way that the conversation unfolded. I said, yes, it does. If you want the full story, it takes quite a bit of space and time to clarify, and that's why I can't rehash it every time somebody asks about Genesis 4:1. Have you ever heard about the Targum translations that were made from the original Hebrew Torah during the 1st century CE? These Targums support the information that I present and clarify what has been left out of the King James Version of the Bible. I'm going to repeat these just because 3 of you asked this on the same page. And here's 2 of the Targum translations on Genesis 4:1. And then I'm going to read just several other quotes from many different sources which also verify this. And this is just going to be the tip of the iceberg. If you read my book, there's so much more that I cover than just what I'm going to be reading here. From the Palestinian Targum, it says this: "And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel, and she conceived and bare Cain. And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And she added to bear from her husband Adam, his twin, even Abel." All right, let's take a look at this particular translation from the Palestinian Targum. Again, just to explain what the Targums are for those that are new to the program, new to the Targums, new to what I'm speaking about. When the people, during Jeremiah's time, when the temple was burnt down and the Lord allowed the Chaldeans to come in and the Babylonians to come in to destroy the temple, the people, Zedekiah, the king, his eyes were put out, his children, their eyes were put out. The people were taken in exile to Babylon. This is why Daniel ended up living there. And for 70 years, the people lived and were assimilated into the Babylonian Empire. During the course of that time, they forgot or lost the use of their scholarly language, which was Hebrew. And only the priesthood remained knowledgeable in the original Hebrew language. The other citizens, especially the masses, they spoke Aramaic, and they also spoke Palestinian. And so when they went to the synagogue and the Torah was read in Hebrew, the leaders found that they would have to translate it anyways to explain what they were speaking about in the synagogues. And so the rabbis, the church authority, the synagogue priesthood, they authorized these Targum, which simply means translation. And they had these different groups of rabbis officially translate and verify the translation of the Hebrew Torah into what became the Aramaic Targum or translation, and also the Palestinian Targum translation. There are 3 Targums out there. And so in this Targum, the Palestinian one, it says, "And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel." What angel did she desire? That angel would be Lucifer, or Satan, the one that came into paradise to tempt her to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, who promised her godhood. And it says, "And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel, and she conceived." So, having desired this angel, she then conceives, meaning that something took place. She conceived and bare Cain. So, Cain is the result of this desiring of the angel and this conception which took place between her and this angel. And then continuing. And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And so, having slept with the angel and being impregnated, she bore Cain. She said to the Lord, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And so, Cain was in the likeness of this angel, the angel of destruction, also known as Samael. In the Targums, he's also known as Samael. And this is an important passage too. Listen to the next line. And she added to bear from her husband Adam his twin, even Abel. And so after her desiring of the angel, and after she had conceived and bare Cain, who was the son of this angel, and she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord, she then says, and she added to bear from her husband. So this next conception, this next twin, whose name is Abel, she bore from her husband Adam. So there you see completely the separation between the conception of Cain and the conception of Abel, how one is attributed to having desired the angel, and how the other is attributed to her husband Adam. Now let's look at the Aramaic Targum, because this one gives even greater detail. It says this, and Adam knew his wife Eve, who was pregnant by Samael, Satan, the angel of death. Samael is the angel of death. And she conceived and bare Cain, and he was like the heavenly beings and not like the earthly beings. And she said, I have gotten a man from the angel of the Lord. So here in this particular Targum, it says, just as it says in the KJV, Adam knew his wife Eve, comma. But the King James Version of the Bible does not say this, who was pregnant by Samael or Satan. So even though Adam knew his wife Eve, she was already pregnant by Satan, and she conceived and bare Cain. So Cain was the result of that impregnation by Samael. And then the next passage, which further clarifies that Cain was not a child of Adam's. And he was like the heavenly beings and not like earthly beings. And she said, I have gotten a man from the angel of the Lord. And so I'm going to read, those are just the Targums on Genesis 4:1. Now, if you read the Targums, Genesis chapter 3, in the Targums, names the serpent again as Samael, the angel of death, or Satan. And also in Genesis chapter 5, in the Targums, it completely separates Cain from the lineage of Adam and speaks about how he was not of Adam's likeness. And so I ask you to read those. Let me check the chat room, and then I'm going to continue on with some other verification from other books. Hello, Ran and Sherry and Jazz. I appreciate all of you, and Deborah. God bless all of you and all the guests that are tuning in. Also, I want to let everybody know that John the Baptist right now is doing a show, or earlier did a show on the origins of man, the sons of God, and an angel wars. And he's doing this because I'm going to be a guest on his show this Sunday evening. And in that show, we're going to nail down this whole strong delusion and how the premise is being established for the ancient aliens to claim they are the creators of humanity and that they're the benefactors and that they're coming to save us, which is a complete fabrication and is a massive lie which will cause even the most elect to be deceived if it were possible. And so we're gonna break it down for you so that you can just give that one show to all those people that think that and believe that and say, here, listen to this and get clarity, which is very, very important. Okay. Now we're going to go to Sherry says, thank you for all you do. That will be an awesome show. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate all of you. Rand says, where is this? This is John the Baptist, tribulation-now.org. Hello, Joanne. Welcome, sister. And yes, Joanne, I did get your message, and I'll call you one afternoon, evening, when I have time in the later hours. God bless you, sister. Rand asks when the show will be on. It will be at 8 o'clock this Sunday evening at tribulation-now.org. You can find it on Blog Talk Radio under John Baptist. That's where he does his show. All right, I want to continue on with this because I want to bring clarity. All right, continuing with some other passages which also verify that Cain was a child of Lucifer. And the reason it's important for you to understand this is because unless you know that there are two seedlines on this planet and that one is dedicated to evil and that this evil seedline is the foundations of the New World Order and the Illuminati bloodlines that have for hundreds of years, thousands of years, claimed the divine right to rule, that unless you know that Cain truly was a hybrid child and that he was from the fallen angels, much like the Genesis chapter 6, the sons of God mating with the daughters of man, you will not know that there's a war going on this planet and that this enmity that carried on from the war in heaven is unveiling itself right here on our planet right now, and that the war is going to get even more in your face and even greater so that the whole world is caught up in this conflagration. And so whether you believe anything that I talk about, whether you believe Cain was a hybrid child of the serpent, whether you believe that the 13 Illuminati bloodlines that rule over and are pushing the New World Order are connected to this same seed of the serpent, whether you believe or not, you are affected. Your everyday world is affected by the decisions and the agenda of the powers that be that are pushing this communistic agenda of the New World Order and global government. Because the $16 trillion debt and the collapse of our global financial institution, that's part of the agenda. That's part of the New World Order. That's part of the serpent seed waging war against the seed of Adam. And so you're affected every day, and your life is at risk. So it's important to know who the enemy is. And also, you want to know who the enemy is and that there are two sides, because many of you are sitting in these Illuminati churches, and you're supporting the seed of the serpent. And you're waging war against your own creator, and you have no idea. You're worshiping Baal. You're worshiping idols. And these idols are the sons of Belial. They're all tied to this teaching. All right, continuing on. This is from the Protevangelion of James. It says this. Now it was the 6th month with her, and behold, Joseph came from his building. He entered into his house, and he found her great with child. He smote his face and cast himself down upon the ground on sackcloth, and wept bitterly, saying, With what countenance shall I look unto the Lord my God, and what prayer shall I make concerning this maiden? For I received her out of the temple of the Lord my God a virgin, and have not kept her safe. Who is he that hath ensnared me? What hath done this evil in mine house, and hath defiled the virgin? Is not the story of Adam repeated in me? For as at the hour of his giving thanks, the serpent came and found Eve alone and deceived her, so hath it befallen me also. For those that are not familiar, the Protevangelion of James speaks about Mary and her betrothal to Joseph, who was an elderly widow gentleman. He was 50, 60 years in age, already had grown-up children, and he was betrothed to Mary according to the will of the Father, and she was a 15-year-old virgin. When he took her home from the temple, he went out into the wilderness to work. He built houses. He did construction. When he came back 6 months later, he found her pregnant with child. And he says in the text, Who hath done this evil in mine house, and hath defiled the virgin? Is not the story of Adam repeated in me? For as at the hour of his giving thanks, the serpent came and found Eve alone, deceived her, so hath it befallen me also. So just as it says in the Targums, just as it says in the Kitab al-Majali about finding Eve alone, here it is, Joseph is saying, the story of Adam is repeated in me. So he's saying that the same thing happened to Adam. And this is common knowledge because, he's just saying, as a matter of fact, that, yes, Adam also found his wife already pregnant, and that when Adam found his wife pregnant, it was the serpent that had seduced her and impregnated her. And that child, we know, was Cain. Further confirmation. Here's another incredible and important passage. This one comes from the Gospel of Philip. It says this. First adultery came into being, afterward murder. He was begotten in adultery, for he was the child of the serpent. So he became a murderer just like his father, and he killed his brother. Indeed, every act of sexual intercourse which has occurred between those unlike one another is adultery. All right, I'm going to explain this. And there's even more to this passage, but on YouTube you can only, present so much. So, explaining this. First, adultery came into being. I should find the original passage. Let me see. I'm not going to have time. In the earlier part of the quote, it talks about he who was begotten, or he who was created, which was speaking about Lucifer, and it was speaking about how his sons were not noble. And the reason his sons were not noble is because he was created by the Father, and he was not a child or a son of man, so that he could naturally produce children. And so the text continued, first adultery came into being, afterward murder, meaning that, again, what happened in the garden after Eve was transformed into flesh on the 8th day, she was tempted, impregnated by Lucifer, Satan, And that adultery, this was adultery. Adultery came into being, and then afterward murder. Why murder? Because the results of that adultery was the birth of Cain, and Cain was the first murderer. He killed his brother. Listen to the rest of the quote. And he was begotten in adultery. That's Cain. For he was the child of the serpent. How much more clear can it be than that? So he became a murderer just like his father. Was Adam a murderer? No. We know that Satan is a murderer. It says so in John. So, what else could this mean? And so, he, Cain, became a murderer just like his father. He killed his brother. And we know that his brother that was killed was Abel, who was of the son of Adam. He was the firstborn son of Adam. And Abel had to be replaced by Seth because Cain slaughtered him. We've got 9 minutes remaining. I'm going to try to touch upon a couple more. This is from the Apocryphon of John. It says this. Yes. Now up to the present day, sexual intercourse continued due to the chief archon. He planted sexual desire in her who belongs to Adam, and he produced through intercourse the copies of the bodies, and he inspired them with his counterfeit spirit. Continuing, I'm not gonna decipher these. I'm gonna just read them. From a Valentinian exposition, these are from the Nag Hammadi Codices. Therefore he acquired sons who angered one another, and Cain killed Abel his brother. For the demiurge breathed into him his spirit, and there took place the struggle with the paucity of the angels and mankind, those of the right, which are the sons of Seth, with those of the left, which are the sons of Cain, those in heaven with those on earth, the spirits with the carnal, and the devil against God. So here you have the separation, the wheat and the tares, the goat and the sheep, the left and the right. It's the sons of Belial, the sons of the law, the sons of light, the sons of Seth, the sons of Cain. It's all the same separation, the division. From the Kebra Nagas, it says this. The raping of Eve is what led to the birth of Cain, as Adam knows immediately that Cain is of ill temperament. And at that sorrowful moment when Cain was born, and when Adam saw that the face of Cain was ill-tempered or sullen and his appearance evil, he was sad. So again, that right there, the raping of Eve is what led to the birth of Cain. Further confirmation. Continuing. This is from Isaiah chapter 14. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. Everybody knows that Isaiah chapter 4 is a reference to Satan and to Lucifer. How thou art fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning. But what people don't realize is that this particular passage also has reference to him having seed and the fact that the Father was going to eradicate and destroy that seed and not allow them to build and fill the face of the world with cities. Now, I'm going to read a comment that was given again by one of the three readers after they had read all of this information. He says this, I appreciate your point of view. It's disheartening to think that our alleged canon has been tampered with, mistranslated, or had huge portions excised in order to keep us from the truth. Yes, I'm aware of the Targums, but I've never read them firsthand. I've only heard them discussed, interpreted by others. I agree that great fundamental truths have been kept from us and that believers are confused and divided over issues like this. And I would agree. And one other thing that I'm going to say, and we're going to end this in song. Let me check the chat room. One other thing that I wanted to say is that the knowledge of whether Cain was a child of Lucifer, a child of the devil, or not has no bearing on salvation, and that this issue should not be of such division that it causes us to bash and beat up on each other without being able to share dialogue in an adult way, without being able to openly discourse over these things, without getting hyped up or so emotional that we can't even listen to one another, which is the case that I find with this particular issue. Why it is so divisive and why it is so contentious, it is beyond me. But again, this information has no bearing on salvation, whether you believe it one way or the other, and it should not cause you, if somebody believes otherwise, to have hostility towards your fellow brother or sister in Christ. And so I ask all of you, and myself included, let us be gentle with one another and let us be humble. None of us has all of the answers or, can answer all of the questions. We're all here together. We're still in fallen form. We are not returned to our first estate yet. The Lord is still coming. All these things are still unfolding. And yes, the hour is late, and we are quickly moving into the end game of the agenda. But let us support one another in truth. Let us help each other in discernment. Let's pray for one another, empower each other, encourage each other in truth and growth. And if we're wrong about something, admit it. There's nothing wrong with admitting, that we're wrong if we are. We're all learning. We're all learning together. And so I think it's important that we remain an open cup. Because as long as you are, the Father will continue to fill you with truth and continue to bring this kind of knowledge, this kind of truth to you so that you can share it with others. I want to just ask that the Father and the Son continue to bless each one of you, protect you and your family members, guide you in discernment. Believe nothing that I say. Believe nothing that I say. Go before the Lord. Enter the prayer closet. Get on your knees in the humble to the Father and ask Him for clarity. Ask the Father and the Son for clarity and discernment. And seek diligently. Make the kingdom your first priority, and the Father will guide you. In Yahushua, Yahweh's name, I pray. God bless all.
A number of things that I've heard from people in the Pentagon, that the buzzword in the secret of secrets in the Pentagon is the Sumerian gods are returning, and that's what they're referring to as that whole area that Peter's.
Wow.
Can you repeat that again, just in case anybody missed it? The buzzword
in the Pentagon, and the military circles that are in the know about the cover-up here, they kind of, in whispered tones, talk about the return of the Sumerian gods. And they're talking about what we would call aliens or fallen angels returning into the Middle East, into Old Sumer area.
The Anunnaki.
Well, could be.
Under the other ancient names.
Do you think that has anything to do with why we're in a...
Just a further reminder, remember, this Sunday night I will be joining John the Baptist on his show, tribulation-now.org, to clarify some of these. Saturday, I will have Master Teacher 33 join me for discussion on the demiurge, and also I want to go ahead and announce that Joanne, Peace 333, will join me for a show at some point to share with us her testimony and how it was that the Lord led her to similar discernment and to, as many of us have been blessed to share. God bless all of you. Good night.